I am one of the co-PIs on this project, as well as thematic lead for livelihoods. You're all very welcome. It seems that we have about 90 people that have joined already. Please just give us another 2 to 3 minutes just to allow for more of the attendees to join, and then we will start. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I know in some of our countries it's evening already, so thank you so much for your interest in joining this informational webinar that we have scheduled today. I would like to ask some of my panelists to also put on their videos, I think, just to so that everybody can see who is part of the program and the project team. And then obviously, as we move through the different parts of the program, we could put our videos off. We are already at 134 participants, so we're very excited, and we are very happy to take you through this process today. The main, my name, maybe for those of you that might have missed it, my name is Dr. Angelique Wilskut. I'm from the Human Sciences Research Council. I'm co-PI on this program of work, as well as the livelihoods thematic lead. And the focus of the program for today is on the back of the expression of interest that has gone live. We thought that it would be good to be able to provide potential applicants with a practical walkthrough of the research call, going through a little bit of the technicalities, the actual platforms that will be used, and to troubleshoot and gather information for our frequently asked questions, so that we can make sure that we support potential applicants as best we can in the applications process. But of course, this program on relational well-being and young people across these 12 focus countries of the call, it obviously has conceptual rooting and a theoretical a baseline that we are coming from. And so we thought, before we go into the more technicalities of submitting an application, where to do it, what difficulties that you might have, we would like to just remind those that might not have been privy to the launch occasion, just a little bit more about the summary of what relational well-being, what this approach is, and what we are trying to test and generate empirical evidence on over this 5 years of the program. So I will leave it to the panelists to introduce themselves as and when they are needed in the program. But for now, I think that's enough of an introduction. The first input will be by our academic lead, which will give us a brief summary of what relational well-being is and how we are intending to conduct this work in the Global South. The second input will be more specifically around the practicalities of the research call. The third input will be around the NRF platform and how to navigate the application system. We will also have an input on our space, which is our matchmaking platform. So this we thought would be good, so that people that might struggle or might have struggled with networking and trying to collaborate with other researchers, that it would be good to be able to also touch on that in today's program. So with that being said, thank you very much. You are all very welcome. And we're going to provide ample time for question and answers at the end of the program or session, I think about 35 minutes. But we also want to invite you to put some of your questions in the chat, and the panelists and some of the other co-hosts will also do their best to be able to attend to those comments as they emerge throughout our discussion. So thank you very much. I'm going to ask Thabo. Thabo, will you please play us the video input from our academic lead, Professor Charlene Swartz?
My name is Charlene Swartz, and I'm a sociologist of youth. I've been a youth worker for 12 years, and I've been a researcher for 16 years. So almost all my life, I've been interested in young people and their lives, their flourishing, what's going on in their lives. And so it's a real pleasure for me to be able to talk to you today about a new program of research, which we've called YouGood, Why Well-Being is Relational, and how it affects young people in the Global South. One of the key statistics that I like to speak about is how 90% of the world's young people live in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And so much of the research, though, is focused on young people in the global north, who actually constitute only 10% of the world's population of young people. And so everybody, all these young people, have the same ontological insecurity, the same threats, the same unprecedented challenges to their future. The problem with young people in the Global South is that they have fewer resources and buffers to withstand some of these onslaughts. And so the program that we're going to be speaking about today in this video is really about well-being and how we need a different approach to young people and their well-being. We don't want it to be negative. We want to talk about well-being as something that's positive, aspirational, and inclusive. We want it to be holistic, not just to talk about young people and the risks they take or don't take, or the jobs that they get or don't get, but how they might work together collectively to bring about a future that they want and that we want for them as researchers, as stakeholders, as parents, as teachers, as community workers. There are many different ways of thinking about this notion of well-being, and many people have spoken about it as, what you have, your assets, welfare, your standard of living. Others speak about how you feel about what you have. Many others are beginning to speak about the fact that there are many dimensions to well-being. In this program of research, we want to embrace all of those definitions, but we want to focus on this piece of relational well-being. How are young people connected to each other, to the towns and the cities in which they find themselves, to the institutions in which they work or go to school or study? Those are all important parts of a focus on relational well-being, where well-being is thought about as being constructed in relationships between people and the environment through cultures and traditions and religions. In the Global South, we don't run away from those things. Young people are embedded in histories and traditions and cultures, and that's really important. But how do we research this issue of relational well-being? Is it something a little bit fuzzy? And it is difficult to research, of course it is. In the literature over the past 10 years or so, relational well-being has appeared, but it's really been focused on romantic, familial, or work relationships. It hasn't really done the deep, multi-dimensional things that we're wanting this program of research to investigate. And so it's important for a Southern approach to relational well-being. And what do we mean by that? Is there something that our traditions and our cultures and our collective ways of being that we frequently speak about in the Global South can be used to bring about young people's well-being, their flourishing, a new way of thinking about their lives? And so the problem with talking about relational well-being in the global north particularly is that we often think of orderly societies. If you have a problem, you get a welfare check, or you go to a hospital and you stand in a queue. In the global south, we may not have all of those resources, but we certainly have other resources that we can bring to bear on this topic. So what do we envisage in this research program? Well, we think of relational well-being as a way in which we can approach research, both as the way that we work together as a team, so relational working, how we think about the theories and the concepts, or epistemology, but also the way that we design research, so that we can gather research in a way that is not extractive, but that includes young people in what it is that we are doing and trying to find out about them, and then helping them and those who serve them to put those things into practice. So the YouGood program of research aims to strengthen conceptual, theoretical, methodological tools and capacities that help young people to pursue their own well-being, help policymakers to help them pursue their own well-being. We want practitioners, key stakeholders to all make meaningful and impactful changes in the lives of young people as they think about this research. We want to test and further develop relational approaches to young people's well-being so that we really can have a body of work to go forward into the future, into the next century even. And we want to generate empirical insight that will help us to do that. We're going to be asking for people all around the Global South, specifically in the 12 countries that include Colombia, Ecuador, Egypt, Ghana, India, Indonesia, Morocco, Senegal, South Africa, Tanzania, and Vietnam, and also Romania, because of its history of being excluded from so many pieces of research in the past. We want to fund up to 20 projects over 3 years, and we've got a lot of money because of the partnership with the Fondation Botnar and the National Research Foundation in order to do so. And we have 4 thematic areas that will address youth relational well-being with livelihoods and jobs, with climate crisis and climate change, with digital access and digitalization, and with mental health. And so we're asking people to think really hard about how we can research in ways that are new and fresh and bring about young people's voices to the center of the stage rather than on the periphery. And when these grants have been awarded, we want to get together in a community of practice. We don't want everybody just to be working on their own. We want to come together and talk and compare notes and think how some of the research that we are finding, some of the outcomes that we are finding can go into policy, can go into youth work and youth groups and to community practice. And what do we really want to do at the end? We want to deepen our theoretical understanding of young people's well-being. We want to foreground Southern ways of knowing and intervening when it comes to young people's well-being. And we want to center their voices in the research and solutions to the intractable challenges of our day and our age. And we want you to join us in doing that.
Thank you, Thabo. Thank you for that. So we thought it good to provide that little summary input just to situate ourselves and remind ourselves again what it is that we are trying to do in this program of work. And to bring that a little bit closer to the practicalities of how that would translate into actual research projects or prospective proposals, I would like to invite our thematic leads to switch on their videos and join me as we just input into the conversation just brief examples of what we envisage a project on livelihoods, for example, and young people in the Global South and relational well-being, what it would look like. Let me go first, and then I will pass the baton on to the rest of the thematic leads. I see Krish has joined us. If Cindy Lee can put on her video, and if Candace can do the same, that would be great. So in the livelihoods thematic area, normally from our review of literature, we found that livelihood studies focus on measuring the employment outcome of particular interventions with no clear understanding of the factors coming together to frame livelihoods and its implication for youth well-being, for example. So what kind of research do we think could be done in this program of research? So, for example, when you talk about understanding how young people navigate livelihoods in the Global South, it's important to recognize that most don't do it alone. They do so in the company of close friends and extended family, elders, and other community members. And these relations are actually very crucial for understanding their well-being. The Latin American context, for example, alerts us to the reality that many young people are navigating livelihoods in the company of the members of drug cartels and gangs. It's also common to see young people navigating livelihood within broken family structures and networks. In India also, there are also examples of interventions that have not resulted in valued livelihoods outcomes because of the role of the caste system, with some youth actually being stigmatized due to their involvement in these interventions. So these examples point to the importance of incorporating a relational perspective and a more of a systemic perspective. So we feel that this program of work, especially within the livelihoods thematic area, it allows us to focus on the very context within which young people navigate livelihoods, with insecurity, territorial inequality, social status, and labor precarity that actually frame the potential for well-being of many young people in the global south. So I think that gives a sense of the kinds of projects we think could be valuable within the livelihood space. I'm going to invite Krish, who is our digitalization and thematic lead, to give us similar examples at the interface of digitalization, young people and their well-being in the global south. Thank you, Krish.
Thanks, Angelique, and good morning, good afternoon, colleagues, wherever you may be coming from. As Angelique mentioned, I'm the thematic lead for the digitalization space in this study. And when we talk about digitalization, the big question that emerges is, how are advancing technologies influencing a young person's relationships and their overall well-being in the global south? So there's three ways to think about this. One is digital inclusion. How does your exclusion affect your ability to build networks and your social capital? The second is, how is your sense of humanism or your identity affected? How does using technology influence your sense of self and your ability to connect with others? And then the third one is in the knowledge transfer space. How does technology influence you and your community's access to knowledge and ability to collaborate? So these are big questions, and we're looking for studies that examine them, looking at the lived realities that we experience here in the global south. For example, if I look at the digital inclusion space, here across the African continent, our research has found that there's strong cultural biases that deny a young female their access, a young female student access to technology. So you could examine this from a relational thinking point of view. And so you do this by analyzing the networks that influence that female student's access to technology. And that reveals then crucial relational dynamics that contribute to these biases. And that approach also helped us see the hidden connections, and sometimes they are more important connections that perhaps aren't as obvious at first glance. And so a network analysis in this instance could then help you uncover those hidden relationships, which could then be key in understanding how digital inclusion can be improved. And then lastly, these sorts of studies will help us understand our barriers. And so by mapping out these relationships, that network analysis can then show us where there are gaps or barriers. And so following that approach, what it allows us to do is allows us to understand how these structural inequalities are perhaps formed and how they are possibly perpetuated going forward. So, I mean, it helps us answer the question, why do you believe perhaps that your son needs a phone, but not your daughter? These are essential things that we experience. And when we understand what informs these beliefs, we then learn how to tailor solutions to the family, to the school, to other stakeholders that might be in that female students network. And ultimately, these sorts of studies then help us also build participatory and emancipatory strategies that can then transform individual and community mindsets. Thanks, Angelique. That's it from me.
Thank you, Krish. I would like to now also invite Dr. Candace Groenewald, our mental health thematic lead, to give us an example of how this would translate in the mental health space. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and it's so lovely to see such a widespread audience. I've been trying to keep record of who we have in the space, and so yeah, welcome to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, good evening. I'm Candace Groenewald, and yes, I'm going to be the mental health lead. I think a key thing to state when we talk about mental health is that we recognize that mental health is complex, and so we don't want to be too prescriptive about the particular issues that we are asking researchers to engage with, but we do want to ask researchers to be bold. I think Charlene mentioned that we're interested in the big things that are affecting young people in the particular countries that we're working with. So we're asking researchers to be bold and think about what are those key mental health concerns that are affecting young people in the environment that you are working with. And so recognizing through the space that mental health is multifaceted, it is complex. And I think the one thing, based on what people have responded in the chat, is also that it's probably going to be a cross-cutting issue. So someone might look at mental health and climate change, mental health and digitalization, mental health and livelihoods, and that's okay. As long as we can see how the relational well-being framework is applied within the work that you are doing. So Angelique had asked us to think about examples of what a project would look like. And from a mental health perspective, if we think about the increases in suicide ideation that we've seen over the last couple of years amongst young people, we might be thinking of why is that? What are the factors that's contributing to that? But through the lens that Charlene framed earlier, that we're not only looking at the negative and the risks, but we are trying to figure out from a mental health perspective, for example, what promotes mental health amongst young people. So what are those factors, or what do we need to look for in preventing suicide ideation or interrupting those pathways towards that? So if someone wanted to develop an intervention, for example, around suicide ideation, and let's say they are thinking about doing this through a chatbot, right? So as Charlene said, we want those bold, bigger, creative ideas around doing the work that we are doing. There would be some questions we are expected researchers to ask. And it's not just limited to this, but there might be other questions that we haven't asked. But some of the questions through the relational wellbeing framework would be, for example, how is mental health and suicide understood within that particular community? So think it through the lens of what you might be thinking of. How is that issue understood? What are the factors that place people at risk for suicide ideation within the different systems, but also what are the factors that protect them from that? Thinking of the family, the individual, religion, norms, and all of those things that Charlene also unpacked. How can young people be meaningfully involved in the work that you are doing? This is key because this sets us aside from other kind of agendas around mental health. It's the real involvement, and that's the relational component that would come through of young people in the work that you are doing. And if we think of the chatbot example that I explained, it's not just about talking to young people and asking them about the experiences, but also how are they involved in the actual development of this thing that you are trying to implement within the space. And lastly, how can you work with different stakeholders in building the relationships, in building a collective agency or urgency rather, towards the work that you are doing? So it's really thinking in a very applied way around the relational wellbeing framework in relation to that particular mental health concern that you are trying to challenge. But again, just to bring the point forward that Charlene had made, it's not just about understanding those risk pathways, but really thinking about how can mental health be promoted within the communities that you are working with, and thinking about how you can show that in the work that you are doing. Yeah, so thanks. That's it from me.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to ask our last thematic lead, Cindy Lee, to please answer the same question. What kind of example projects do you have for us at the interface of climate change, relational well-being, and young people in the Global South? Thanks, Cindy Lee.
Thanks, Angelique. I have very exciting examples to share. But first, the problem. So a lot of the research about young people and climate change emerges from wealthy countries in the global north, as Charlene's video touched on. And this has resulted in an emphasis on issues that are quite different to those experienced by young people in the global south as it relates to climate change. The research focus on youth and climate change is often quite individualized. So there's a lot of emphasis placed on youth activism or on the individual impact of climate change on mental health. So we want to try and think beyond these issues because they are quite well studied, to look at how climate change intersects with the well-being of young people in the global south in different ways. So, for example, in contexts where rising temperatures impact learners who attend schools that have tin roofing, Projects that investigate how teachers, learners, parents collectively respond to these challenges would be really interesting. Methodologies could include perhaps a podcast series that documents the different actions taken by the parties involved, or else considering the limited research on how youth with disabilities are especially vulnerable to extreme weather events. Projects that use participatory methods to include youth or include youth organizations and call attention to the physical and the social dynamics of how climate change affects their daily lives and future prospects would be really interesting. A third example could be inviting young people from adolescent care centers in different contexts to participate in a series of social network interviews. This is an innovative methodology developed in the Global South that involves interviews conducted by research participants with members of their community and networks, and it can really help participants to strengthen the understanding of their lived experience, but also their climate action networks. So we think that the relational well-being approach can help us move beyond the individualized focus in climate change research, as well as its emphasis on activism and mental health, to think about different ways to understand how climate change is impacting young people and how they and others are responding to this very multifaceted challenge.
Thank you so much, Cindy Lee, and thank you everybody for contributing your examples. Of course, these are not exhaustive examples, but we thought it would just be good to give a sense of, you know, when people are engaging with a new framework, sometimes it becomes a bit difficult to think like, how is that actually going to translate into a research proposal? And so we thought that providing these examples would be good. Before I hand over to our NRF colleague, there's also just one aspect that I wanted to make clear just in relation to the conceptual basis that we wanted to share with you, is that in addition to the 4 thematic areas that form the focus of investigation in this call, we are also open to projects that sort of fall into a 5th category, which is the more conceptual basis of relational well-being. And so while we of course want to emphasize empirical work, we are not also excluding conceptual and more theoretical work, trying to apply and critique relational well-being as an approach and framework. So I just wanted to also make that clear. Thank you very much, everybody. I think that sort of concludes the more summary and conceptual basis of the program. I want to just check in with Candace and with Dorothy if there's anything that's coming through on the chat that we want to deal with now before we hand over to Zolani, that will be taking us through some of the key aspects of the research call.
Nothing major coming up on the chat. Any
Welcome, Charlene.
questions? Hi, Charlene.
No, all I'm seeing in the chat is people saying this is amazing stuff and it's very exciting. Yeah. And we're very excited that you're excited.
Yes.
But we're also excited for you to produce proposals that are different to the kinds of things that you might normally do. And I think that if we can just riff off some of that energy and some of the kind of dropping aha moments that are happening, I think we're going to be in a good place. So, yeah, and thanks for listening to my video.
Yeah, just encourage everyone to pop any questions that they have in the chat. Angelique, you said we'll have some Q&A later, but if there's anything that people would like to just ask quickly, we'll try and respond as we go along, but we also will have a session to just talk through. So I see some questions coming up now, but yeah, we'll probably save them.
Yes, some of the more technical questions are actually going to be dealt with now in the research core section. So I think I'm going to just to try and make up a little bit of time, because we did start a little bit late, so just bear with us. But I'm going to provide Zolani now the opportunity to please take us through the research call, highlight key aspects that that potential PIs and prospective applicants must take note of, especially in relation to eligibility, etc. So thank you, Zolani. Zolani, if you will start before you start your presentation, maybe you want to just introduce yourself to the colleagues and the attendees so that they know who's who in the zoo. Thank you, Zolani.
Thank you, Angelique, and good afternoon, colleagues, and good morning to those who are in other areas. As Angelique indicated, my name is Zolani Diosi from the National Research Foundation in South Africa. I am the project manager for the YouGood program. I will take you through some of the aspects related to the call. The document was shared when the call was opened on the 22nd of January, 2024. And my colleague, Kateko, will take you through the system in terms of how to navigate the system after this presentation. I won't actually go in detail in terms of what has been shared in the call guideline document, but we'll highlight those areas that you need to take cognizance of, including the application process and submission of proposals, as well as the eligibility criteria and timelines. Introduction to YouGood. I think Charlene did a great job in terms of taking you through the concept of relational well-being. The National Research Foundation is working with the Fondation Botnar and the Human Science Research Council to implement this program that is targeted to youth. And this is just a high-level introduction of Fondation Botnar. It's a philanthropic organization from Switzerland, and it's the main funder for this program. National Research Foundation is also co-funding the program and also administrating some of the aspects of the program. Human Science Research Council is actually the lead academic lead in terms of the expertise in running with the program, and will work very closely with the project grantees. The eligibility criteria will talk on two aspects of the eligibility criteria, that is eligibility for applicants, which is highlighted in the call guideline document. And you require to have a PhD to partake in this program, as the colleagues have indicated that there's a lot of academic insights that one needs to do in terms of research on this program. And is actually the participants should be in one of the 12 countries, as well as there should be other partners such as the NGO or non-governmental organizations, community groups, and inclusion of youth groups as well in the relational well-being applications. The technical eligibility criteria is actually the number of years that the project can run. Maximum is 3 years, and minimum is 1 year. I doubt that there would be any project that run for 1 year, but maximum is 3 years. And as I indicated, there is actually 2 tracks in this call. And the first is that we call it a single country, which is one country can apply, one applicant from each country can apply without involving other countries, but that applicant cannot partake in other projects, even in other country or in a multi-country research teams. The other option is the multi-country research teams, which has got at least 3 countries involved. And the difference in this is actually the amount of funding that is provided for each project. The single country has got about 200 US dollars in terms of funding, and the multi-country has got about $500 in terms of the funding. So there's no maximum limit to the number of countries that can participate in a multi-country funding track, as long as there's at least 3 years. It could be 10 countries, and as long as it is manageable. The application process, actually, this is just a process that you need to follow in terms of the application. The online registration for partner search, Angelique talked on this in terms of there will be a session at the end to take you through the Our Space platform that will take you through the online registration. But some of the potential applicants have gone through the Our Search to find their partners. The second stage is the submission of the expression of interest, a proposal. The eligibility check for expression of interest is important that you meet the eligibility check for submission of the proposal on the online system that is provided in the call document that we shared. And my colleague Nkateko will take you through that process. Assessment of the expression of interest, this will be done by the advisory group of experts that will assess whether your application fit with the criteria for funding or for moving to the next stage, which is a full proposal. The next stage, as I mentioned, is the submission of the full proposals. The eligibility check will be done as well. For those countries that are outside South Africa, the submission will go through our designated authority, which is someone who checks whether you meet the eligibility or there are 1 or 2 administrative issues you need to fix or submit as part of your proposal. The designated authority will liaise with you. In the case of the NRF or this call, my colleague Jan Palane would be interacting with you for those applicants who will be coming outside of South Africa. For the South African colleagues or potential applicants, the designated authorities will come from your universities. So you need to link with your designated authority in the research office to before you submit the proposal. Peer review by external expert reviewers. This is actually for full proposal, and hopefully we'll have another session like this to take the people who will be applying for full proposal through the process, and then assessment and ranking of full proposals and funding decision making will be done by the advisory committee. And the process for submitting of proposal, this is just a high-level process, and the institutions will be expected to approve the contract agreements. This is actually part of what you should think of before you submit even the expression of interest. Your institution should be involved in development of this application. You should inform whoever is the authority in the research office, either your manager, research manager, or research administrator, that you intending to submit this application because it's got a implication in terms of the university obligating in authorizing the application. The letter of support from the institution is also required, as well as the assessment of the applications will be done. And as I mentioned earlier in the process, they will be liaising with you by the designated authority in terms of whether, the your good secretariat, whether there are still documents you need to submit that you might have missed submitting. And then there would be administrative technical corrections that might be required. This is actually would be at the discretion of the assessment panel. If most of the information makes sense and there's one or two things that were not or is not covered well in the application, the assessment panel might refer back that application to you to make those slight changes. But of course, if the application is not at good standard, then it will be rejected at that stage. The criteria for assessment, this is a high-level criteria for assessment that will be used by the assessment for the expression of interest. There are 3 areas of criteria for assessment. And the first one is the alignment with the thematic areas. And as Angelique explained, there is actually 4 the colleagues explained 4 thematic areas, and then Angelique emphasized on the 5th element, which is that of theoretical well-being. And then the second criteria is the scientific importance of the proposal. This is important, even though it carries 30% of the weight. It's very important that the proposals are scientifically sound and their rationale and objectives make sense. Otherwise, the project might not be funded. Novelty is encouraged and will be evaluated, as well as what I've mentioned, that the objectives need to link with the rationale, the outputs, the outcomes, etc. of the proposal. And then the societal relevance of the proposal is carrying 20%. This is also important because this is a call for social well-being of youth, especially their relational well-being. This is included to actually inform you how critical or how intense is the submission or the approval of the final proposals in this call. There will be a requirement in the full proposal to submit these 4 strategy documents, which is impact, partnership, ecological mitigation, and engage implications of gender and diversity. More guidelines are provided here in the call document. And you need to have expertise or at least be able to source expertise to assist you in developing these plans, because these projects will not be feasible if the full proposal doesn't come with it. We're emphasizing this at this stage of the expression of interest so that you can plan ahead in terms of galvanizing resources that will take you through the whole application process. Of course, the full proposal will be a closed, what we call a closed call, where successful expression of interest proposals are already successful expression of interest proposals should be have passed that stage in order for the full proposal to be evaluated. If your expression of interest proposal is not successful, then you won't be invited for the full proposal. Hence, it's very important to put all the efforts in developing a proper expression of interest proposal as outlined in the application template that is provided on the call documents. And the last slide is on actually the timelines, which is the dates that we've provided to see this call from expression of interest to full proposal and communicating of the funding decision. Phase 1 is already completed, where there was a partner search and the launch of the program in December, and our space platform was opened in December for potential applicants to matchmake with their partners. Currently, we are on phase 2, where the call was open on the 22nd of January. And this call actually was intended to close at the end of February, but it will be extended to end of March because of the tight deadlines. The information system, the online application NRF Connect will be used as an application system, and Kateko, as I indicated, will take you through this, and the assessment of the proposals will be completed according to the plan in April, and then in May, we will be opening the call for full proposal, or inviting those who are successful to submit full proposal. That will take about 3 months for the call to close, and then afterwards is stage 2 reviews of the full proposal. Angelique, I'll stop there. That was my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zolani, for bringing us back on time. There's been a lot of questions in the chat. There's a lot of quick wins that I think we've left for Zolani to just reply on that, because he's more of the expert in relation to some of the technicalities, but where we've been able to just quickly respond, we've done so. Just to assure everybody that Zolani's presentation will be made available. This is also part of, obviously, the recording of this meeting, but we will also make it available on our YouGood platform as well, webpage, as well as the Our Space platform, where we are trying to grow a bigger set of resources to support the applications. Zolani, I just wanted to have just double check. I've just sent you a question in the chat to you, and I wondered if you want to respond to that before we go on.
Can you please read it out, Angelique? I'm struggling to find it.
Okay, no, it's fine. I'll send you a direct chat. It's fine. I think I think we won't be able to deal with all of the technical queries now. Again, as I said, we want to create a 30-minute space at the end to be able to deal with questions. So thank you for that input, Zolani. I think specific aspects around eligibility we've dealt with, the timelines we've started to deal with, but again, this will become a resource that will be available to potential applicants. I want to allow, I want to just double check if Ms. Kateko has managed to join us. I do see her in the panel. Thanks, Zolani. If you can stop sharing your screen, then we can allow Ms. Maringa to also just take us through the applications process on the NRF Connect. So let me just recap. We've had inputs from the conceptual side. We have had Zolani's inputs that have taken us through the research call and particular aspects of the research call that we need to pay attention to as we apply. And now Kateko's presentation is to take us through the NRF Connect system, which will be the system that actually the applications will be done on. Candace, I see that you put on your video. I don't know if you wanted to interject before we move on.
Yes, I just wanted to check, Angelique, some of the questions were in relation to Zolani's presentation. And I just wanted to check, do we want to keep all the questions for the end? Is that good?
I think those that we can answer during the course of the presentations, we should really do so. Okay. And then at the end, we will allow another opportunity, but just also to be able to keep to time, I think we will focus on those questions that we haven't been able to address.
Sure.
Thank you, Candace, for clarifying that. And then Kateko, thank you. If you will just start with an introduction of who you are, and then please take us through the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angelique. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
We can hear you, but we would love to see you. But maybe for stability of the internet connection, you don't want us to see you, but we would love to engage with you and see you as well. But you are free to continue your presentation. Thanks.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can see the face. I've turned on the video. If not, I won't waste any time. I will continue with the presentation. As Angelique has already mentioned, my name is Nkateko Maringa. I'll be taking you through the NRF Connect system. The URL will be shared with you if it hasn't been already, but it is nrfconnect.nrf.ac.za. This is the page that you will get the moment you hit enter when you capture that URL. We have two ways of logging in on the system. As you can see, we have something called OCID, and underneath that, it says NRF staff. For all our external stakeholders, you will log in on the system with an OCID, right? I'll quickly take you through the process of creating an OCID. It's very quick. You just click on that OCID icon. If you already have one, you will capture your OCID or your email address that is associated with your OCID and the password. If you don't have an OCID ID, you will click on don't have an OCID ID yet, register now. The moment you click on register now, you will see that it will ask for your name, family name, which is optional, primary email address, confirming the email address. I'll go through all of this so I can show you exactly how it works. So it will be the name that is optional, so we will skip it, and it will ask for your primary email address. The email address that you capture here will be the same that you will use on NRF Connect, right? So we'll put test. So we'll use test at 123 at NRF. You can't copy paste, so I need to type in that email address again. Right? And additional email address is not compulsory. You don't need to fill in this field. You will click on next, then it will ask you for the password. The password you capture here as well, it will be the same password that you will use to log in to the system, right? Which is NRF Connect. After I've captured my password, I can now click next. It doesn't match. Let's just try that again. Okay, when you get to this page, it is actually asking you to give permission, right? You will see it says your ORCID connects with ORCID records. Please, when you get here, choose trusted parties or everyone. Trusted parties, NRF is part of the trusted parties. So if I select that option and I click next, it will then say that I need to obviously confirm and give consent that I'm not a robot, and I'll tick those options and say I'm not a robot. And as it always does, we need to complete an image, and I'm not a robot, it will have a tick. You click complete registration, and there will be another pop-up that says authorize access. Please do not deny access. This is just the integration between ORCID and NRF Connect. You will then click authorize access. You are done with your ORCID registration. It will then redirect you back to NRF Connect. You will then click continue registration. It will ask for your surname because we didn't capture it on the previous page, and date of birth. Then the email address that was captured on the ORCID site. Mobile number is not compulsory. You can then click register, right? It will then automatically log you in to the NRF Connect system, right? Let's just give it a few seconds. There you go. So it has welcome back, Tia, as I've just registered now. So we are aware that there could be some of our partners or stakeholders that have had previous access to our systems. We give you an option if you are familiar with a system called NRF Submissions. We give you an option to pull your CV from that system. And you would do that by clicking on Verify. It would ask for your ID number. This is this ID number that you would use, ID number or passport that you used on the old system that we had called NRF submission system, right? The moment you capture the details, it will say verification complete, and I'm done. And if I refresh my page, it will then now say sync. What am I exactly syncing? I'm syncing my CV that is on the old system to the new system. If you are a first-time user, you'd never logged into the old system, that's still okay. You don't need to follow the process that I just showed you now. You can just complete your CV. As you can see, we have a welcome page with few instructions. And as part of the instructions, we actually give you links, right? Most of these links point to our NRF website where you will get the documents that were mentioned. I think we need to also include the link to the YouGood side so that you can have easy access, or you will know exactly where to go in order to find the documents. In order to create an application, I always advise before you do that, please complete your CV, do the profile, but you can skip all of that, go to My Applications. When I click My Applications, it shows applications. It will then list different categories, right? The YouGood funding opportunity is under concept notes. You'll then click on this icon with a plus sign, and you will see that under concept notes, you get the YouGood, right? You will click on the create button. It will say, are you sure you want to create YouGood application? Please click on create. The moment you click on create, it will then load sections, right? It will have the personal profile, qualifications, research expertise, basic information, previous current project, expression of interest, and application support input. Personal profile, if I edit this section, you will see that it will load with different fields. Compulsory fields are indicated with a red asterisk. Please complete them. And now you know they say with technology, if you expect things not to go wrong, they will go wrong. So the section is not loading data as it should. I won't waste time. I will proceed to the next section. Okay, I can see that it's taking long to load. Please do bear with me. So she says this.
Nkateko, I'm just checking if you are still there. Oh, it seems that we might have lost Nkateko. Jan?
Hi, Angelique.
Hi. So it seems that we might have lost Kateko there because she's not responding.
Yeah. So you want me to take over?
So I was just wondering whether you would be able to take over. Let me see if we can. Would we be able to terminate? Or Kateko, are you back?
I am back. I think we just had a power cut at the office. Sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me, Angelique?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Fantastic.
Kateko.
I'm just waiting for the system to load, but I was still explaining that instead of me wasting time for our partners that have already created an ORCID, I hope everyone saw the process of creating an ORCID profile. You will then, when you're going through the application, you will see that we have a section called basic information. All the compulsory fields are indicated with an asterisk next to them. With the system acting up, Angelique, I am going to share a document instead so that we don't waste time.
Thanks for that.
Angelique, if you can just confirm for me, was everyone able to see how to register a new ORCID profile?
Yes, I was able to see that, so I would assume that all of the attendees had the same privilege.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay. Let me just log out. If it's still giving us issues, Angelique, for the sake of time, because I'm at the office, I think it's a matter of load shedding, but I'm going to try to share again. Share screen. And I'm going to log in. Great. And I'm going to go to my applications. And I think this is where I got cut off while I was still explaining that you will click on my application. You will click on concept notes. Under concept notes, you will then find the You Good poll. You will then click on create. It will ask you if you're sure you want to create an application. And after doing that, you will see some sections will be listed, right? You need to edit each section. All compulsory fields will have an asterisk next to them. Please make sure that you complete those compulsory fields. And once you are done, you will then click on submit. The submit button will remain grayed out until you have completed all the compulsory fields and sections, right? Once that process is complete, as my colleague Zolani has already mentioned, for our local institutions, the application will be rerouted to your institution, right? And for the abroad partners, the applications will then be sent to our colleague who will do the eligibility check. He will look at the PDF document of what you have submitted. He will then compare it against the eligibility criteria that has been shared with you. If you are busy applying and you find that your institution is not on the list, please contact us immediately. We will add it for you, right? And this is mainly for our abroad partners. Angelique, I'm going to end there. As you can see, the system is not in agreement, but if there are any questions, we will cover them when we open up for questions later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nkateko. And I think, unfortunately, the system is not playing bore with us today, but we hope that when the applications are made that it will. You did also mention that you might be able to have a Word document that you could share with colleagues. So maybe that would be something that we could include in addition to the videos that we're going to upload to the website as a resource, so that people can also see how to navigate. I want to thank you, Nkateko, for trying to take us through, but I think you've taken us through the main aspects in the beginning. What I want to just ask Jan now is to just broaden a little bit in terms of your last point, because you were making the point that for the international applicants, that there is an eligibility phase that Jan does the verification. So I wanted to just invite Jan if there is any specific aspects that he'd want to outline for our prospective applicants in relation to his role. Thank you, Jan.
Angelique, so what happens is that with the local institutions, when the applicants submit an application, it goes straight to the designated authority. Those are the people responsible to do the eligibility check before they submit the application to the NRF. So that is the first stage or eligibility check. So in case of a broad institution, there will not be different designated authorities. I will be the DA or the designated authority for all the institutions. So I will be doing the eligibility checks and before I submit to the NRF. And if there's anything that needs to the NRF, I will be able to reopen the application for amendment so that they can fix before submitting to the NRF. That will be the role that I'll be playing on the DA side. And also from the NRF side, I'll be doing the screening process, the entire screening process from the NRF side. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. That was short and sweet, but I thought it was important to have people identify that you would be the contact person with regards to the initial screening, and that you might be in contact with some of the applicants, and this is the role that you are playing in the process. So I thought it was important just to also allow you to have a space to clarify that. So thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Angelique.
Colleagues, we've got a lot of comments and queries in the chat. We're trying to get through all of them. So allow us just to get through our last sort of 10-minute input that before we can go over to the question and answer session. And I just want to encourage, again, please make use of the question and answer function, because part of what we are trying to do today is that, yes, we are trying to address questions, but those that we might not get through in this session, we want to be able to add it to our frequently asked questions that we are compiling, that will also become a resource on our web page and our space page. I saw one of the questions now related to putting out there that if people want collaborators, that this person is free to collaborate. And so, Krish, I think that's a good point for me to just hand over to you. As part of this program of work, we are very serious about co-creation, collaboration, and networking to co-create the knowledge that we want at the end with regards to this program of work. And so we were quite intentional about making sure that we provide a platform for the sharing of information. We also want to gather more momentum around our community of practice. And so the Fondation Botnar's Our Space, which is a learning platform, we have decided to use that as a way in which to facilitate matchmaking between prospective applicants. And so for those of you that have already been on there, we wanted to ask Krish to please just take everybody through the registration, and also just the space of where people will be able to matchmake, identify potential collaborators, and contact them to allow for collaborative proposals and the like. So Krish, please, would you, spend the next 10 minutes just taking us through the Our Space platform. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Angelique. Yeah, that's a good segue to my contribution. I'll just turn on my screen to try and walk us through the process that we follow. Yeah, so if you see that, so if you've come across this project, you've probably found it through the page that's located on the NRF website. And so you've probably found UGood link to the NRF. So then that's nrf.ac.za/UGood. And if you came here, you'd find a lot of information about the project. But you won't be able to conduct your matchmaking directly here on this web page. It doesn't allow you that space for collaboration and discussion. And so, as Angelique mentioned, we've decided to try and adapt a learning space which was provided to us from Fondation Botnar, which is called Our Space. So on this web page here, you find some basic information about the project and the various phases that we go through, more about the theory, about relational well-being, and so on. So you could scroll through here and you'd find out all this information, which is very relevant for the project, for your participation in this project. But you'll notice right up front, we have this big button that says matchmaking. And so it seems like matchmaking is a really important aspect of this project. And so we keep coming back to the point about matchmaking. So you'll scroll down here, you'll find information. If you get right to the bottom here, there's another link which takes you to register on Our Space. So that's one way to get onto the Our Space platform where we do this matchmaking. Or if you had pressed this matchmaking button right on top that says matchmaking now open, it would take you to this new tab. And this is another tab that's on this NRF UGood website. And this tells you a bit more about the matchmaking process. So matchmaking has been established to support researchers to connect with other researchers. And especially we understand how difficult it is to try and build relationships across borders. And we have a broad set of countries that we do want to engage with here. So we're trying to assist you to try and find a partner there. So when you get onto Our Space, we want you to reflect on these 4 questions which are coming out here. What are your research interests? What is your disciplinary background? What is your methodological expertise? And what would you be interested in exploring as part of the UGood research program? So these are the big broad questions that we're asking. And we'd like you to try and share some information about yourself, about your interests, which speak to these questions. And that will help us, the 180 plus of us that are signed on to this call today, to be able to find potential partners that we could work with. And so there's various themes that we've spoken about so far. It's livelihoods, it's mental health, it's climate change and digitalization, MySpace. And then there are spaces for you to then engage there and talk about it. So you'd come here, you'd find some information about the matchmaking process. And there's another button here which would then take you to register to Our Space. We provide a few more steps. It's just guiding you along the process. And these are the steps which I'm going to now talk to you about how you would go about registering on Our Space, go about finding information on Our Space, and then connecting with our peers on the Our Space platform. So if you hit this registration button here, this would take you to a new website. This is on the Our Space platform. And here you'll see the color scheme is quite poignant, and you'll see this pink bar is there that lets you know you're on the Our Space Fondation Botnar website. So you'd come in, you'd capture your name, you'd give in a user ID. I tend to use my email address as a user ID. You'd capture a password and confirm that password. And then you would identify your organization. So you'd go through the list. If you're here, select it. If not, you can choose other, and then you'd be able to capture your organization's name. And then, as I mentioned on the last page, here we want to know more about you. And this is the information that gets shared with others. So you could come in here and capture your professional expertise. You can capture in your bio answers to those questions that we spoke about. What are your research interests? What is your disciplinary background? What is your methodological expertise? Capture it here, because this becomes public information in this short bio box, which others can see, which will then allow them to make a choice if you're the prospective partner that they're interested in. Capture your gender, capture your email address, and identify the country where you're coming from. And once you hit submit, and you've captured all these details right, and you've got the password requirements right, just pay attention to that. There's quite a few requirements there. But once you've done that, you can then sign on to the ourspacefoundationbotnar.org website. So you'd sign in with your user ID and your password. And then once you're in, you'd see this big carousel, which appears right here in the middle. And you'll see the UGood project is featured quite prominently on the OurSpace platform. And so here there's information about today's event that we're hosting, and it's giving you information as it proceeds to the UGood program. So you could click on that more information button. That would then take you to get some basic information. And if you haven't already enrolled in UGood, you could press the enroll button, and then that will allow you to access it. Once you're on here and you're enrolled, you'll find that UGood then pops up as one of the courses. It's using the terminology of OurSpace. As I mentioned, we've adapted a learning platform for this. So the UGood is referred to as a teaching platform. So you'd see the UGood is there, you'd click on it, and once you get into the UGood learning space within OurSpace, you'd come across these 5 boxes. There's been a 5th box which was added just for today's event, and that's for the webinar. And this is where you can get access about today's call. But if you hadn't seen this, you'd also get information about the project. This is similar information to what you find on the nrf.ac.za/UGood webpage. But then there's also some useful resources. There's documents that we've provided that would be very helpful to you as you're trying to shape your proposals. But then we come to matchmaking, and that's the essential part. And this is what this platform is great at. It allows us to be able to connect with one another, view one another's bios, and so on. So if you came and you hit the matchmaking button here, you press that, that would bring you here. And it basically gives you the steps that you need to follow as part of the matchmaking. And here's those similar questions that I just raised. What are your interests? What are your disciplinary background? What is your methodological expertise? And so this just gives you information, and it also guides you on where to go here on OurSpace to find it. And the most essential point about OurSpace is that we have created 5 groups for you to engage with. 4 are for the thematic lead spaces, where we each of the thematic leads spoke to you earlier about what it is that we're interested in. And then there's the 5th space for that, for the understanding the theory behind relational well-being. But this basically then tells you, go to the groups, you choose the group that you're interested in, you join that group, and then you can engage with people that are there, or you could review the bios. How that translates into actually doing it. So you would, if you're here in this space, at this point, you would find there's a groups button right on top. You hit the groups button, you bring it here, and that brings you to these 5 groups that I mentioned. One for each of the thematic spaces: climate change, digitalization, livelihoods, mental health, and then the 5th one for the theoretical application of the relational well-being framework. So depending on your interests, you then choose a group and you join that. So I'm the digitalization person. I click on that. I go here, and you'll see there's some activity that's already been in there. There's some few posts from me, and there's a recent one from Thomas Skiermans, and he's saying he's excited to be part of this group. If you are in a similar position to Thomas, you could come in, add a post here, indicate your interests, what you'd like to focus on in a potential study, and this can get the ball rolling, get the conversation going, and help people find you. If you also want to find others that are interested in the space, you could then scroll down here on the right-hand side. You can find members of the group. And if you look at the members that are there, you'd be able to see the different people that have registered. It's preferable for you to put in your profile picture there so we get a sense of who you are. And you could see the people that have now then joined the digitalization group. And then from me, you could then, if you were interested in working with me, you could then click on my name, and that would bring you to this page. You'd get my contact details, if I've shared it, my email address, and then some details about me. But the important point here is that we want you to try and answer these questions in that bio so we know what your interests are, what your background is, what's your methodological approach to conducting research. Capture that, and let's also have that discussion here in the groups. And share some ideas about what you'd like to explore, and then that will help us identify people that we could work with. And so here, this is a space for us to engage informally before we submit our or respond to the call for the expression of interest. Thank you, Angelique. I hope I've covered the process. If there's any questions, I'm happy to jump in.
Thank you so much, Krish, and thank you for being nice and succinct. Thank you to everybody for their inputs and helping us not veer too much off time. And why that's very important for today's session is that we really wanted to provide an opportunity to really engage with the questions as much as we can, and to get a comprehensive list, as comprehensive a list of questions that we need to detail on the web page. So with that, I would like to really thank Krish again. Thanks for taking everybody through the matchmaking. I thought it was important that we had that input because since the launch on the 8th of December, we haven't really found a lot of activity on the matchmaking space. And so we wanted to use this opportunity again to just amplify that this platform is available, and this is our thinking behind having a space for matchmaking. So there's still enough time to matchmake, and it will also close at the same time that the expression of interest closes. So thank you for that input, Krish. With that, I would like to close the inputs from our panel, but I do want to open up if there is any last minute issues that the panelists think that I have not addressed or that we have not yet addressed in the program that's important before we go over into the question and answer session. Nothing?
Yep, I think we're good.
Okay, great. So with that, it is now open to the attendees. Thabo, I'll just ask you to please take note of who has their hands up. So please put your hands up if you would like to ask your question virtually, online, or if you felt that it hasn't been addressed in the chat, please, it is now your opportunity to raise your hands, and then we will unmute for you to be able to raise your question. I see a hand from Vera. Thabo, can we unmute Vera? I think it seems to be open, Vera.
Yes, can you hear me, Angelique?
Yes, thank you. Please
Thank
go
you
ahead.
so much. Thanks for this very informative session, really helpful. Just in terms of the expression of interest, I just want to confirm we're not going to include the composition of the research team in this expression, or the budget, or the impact and the ecological plan, and the strategic activity, or should there be some reference to who the team will be and all those other elements as well? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Vera. I would like Zolani to just take note of that question, but also if Dorothy wants to jump in there on that question, that would be fine. I will take 2 more questions. So please put your hands up if there's anything burning before. And I see, is it Yugal? Welcome. Thabo, can you please unmute Yugal? Yugal, you are unmuted. You are welcome to pose your question.
Yeah, hi. So there seems to be a lot of confusion going on whether being an NGO, can we apply as the lead partner, or is just the academic institute or the research institute, any research institute should be or shall be the lead partner, and we can collaborate with them, or we can be the second partner with them. How's it?
Thank you, Yogal. I've noted down your question. Do we have anybody else that would like to raise a question in the forum? Okay, doesn't seem like we've got anything burning at the moment. So for now, it is the two questions. Okay, I see that there is another question from Chanel Tabo. Thank you. Chanel, you are welcome to.
Hi, thank you. I'd just like to understand with the matchmaking, does the partner say I have an NPO that I'd like to collaborate with? Would the partners need to be part of or registered on the Our Space website as well?
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Chanel. Okay, so we've got three questions that we can deal with, and then we can open for another set of questions. The first question, Zolani, that we had from Vera, would you be able to assist us with a response on that?
Thanks, Angelique. The partnership information is required in the expression of interest proposal. However, the extensive plans or detailed plan of partnership is not required. You need to indicate who will be doing what, because in order to assess whether the project is feasible or not, there need to be certain expertise that you indicate that they will be available if you're not able to do certain part of the research. Thank you, Angelique.
Thank you, Zolani. Then we had a question on matchmaking, which I can take, but Krish can also add. So the question was really whether you have to register on Our Space. So to be able to use the matchmaking function that we've set up on Our Space, yes, you would have to go and register a profile on Our Space. But of course, if you've got other forms of collaborations already in place or other networks already in place, it doesn't mean that you need to be able to make use of this platform. This is just especially for those partners or researchers that would like to be part of a research project team, but they do not have access to a bigger group of partners to constitute a project team. And then as I think it was in Zolani's input as well, there is also a partner search function on the NRF system. And so that is also another platform through which partners could be searched for. Then there was one more question, which was around whether an NGO can apply as a lead partner. I don't know if that is something that Zolani or Jan would be best placed to answer.
No, Angelique. The non-governmental organization can only be partners, not as lead applicants in the consortium. That is also expressed in the call document.
Thanks, Zolani. Charlene?
So Zolani, just I think people are really wanting to know whether the other question is, what about if you're an academic institution? I mean, a university, that's fine, but if you're a research agency, if you're a research council, all of those things I think are the kinds of detail that people are looking for here.
Yes, all the government funded institutions are eligible to apply. It could be a museum, it could be a science council, it could be a university. What is not the type of university that we don't normally fund are private university that are excluded. So if you from any of those institutions where it's a government funded institution and is doing research, then it is eligible to apply.
Charlene, did you have a further input? I see you
No,
smiling.
I'm just smiling because Harvard is a private funded institution, and you don't mean that, Zolani. So I think what you mean is, yeah, like so I think there's going to be some details that you're going to have to engage with people on. But I think that what is clear is people are saying if it's a private company, then it's not eligible. It's a public funded institution or academic institution. But if you're not sure then of your eligibility, please just ask Zolani.
Thank you for raising that, Charlene. Obviously, I've been just facilitating and not being able to manage all of the chats, but I've been trying to just get through some of the questions. So let me go to the question and answer section and just work through some of the questions, and then maybe we'll have even a little bit more time to raise more questions if we haven't exhausted the questions in the question and answer section.
I just want to go back. Vera is asking about what are the other elements of the expressions of interest? What about the budget? What about the impact and ecological plan, the strategic activity? I think Zolani only answered the first part about whether the partners need to be on the expression of interest. So I think, Zolani, the bigger question is, what is the level of detail of the expression of interest that is required from people?
The best guide.
Sorry to interject, Zolani. I'm aware that Nkateko wanted to show us the application templates, but she failed because of the system. Can I, Zolani, while you are answering, can I try to share the screen so that I can show our people how the template looks like? Maybe that will answer a lot of questions around that.
Thanks, Jan. I think that will be useful, and then Zolani can still add.
Thank you. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Now, I think this is where Nkateko was stuck. So you will go to concept node. I've already created the application. So I will just go edit and it will open the sections on the template. So this is just few sections that you'll be required to complete. The first 3 sections will be pulled from your CV. So you don't need to complete them. You can only edit them if there's something that you need to add on your CV. So you'll be required to complete basic information. It's just few questions from this. You will be asked to add your institution, your project acronym, project title, funding years, amount requested. So this will be the total amount for the 3 years. If you're asking funding for 3 years, that will be the total amount for the 3 years. If it's 2 years, you'll put the total amount for the 2 years. Select the thematic areas, target country of research interest. And then the next section, it will be previous or current projects funded by the Fondation Botnar. Here you have to indicate if there's any previous or current projects funded by Fondation Botnar. So you'll create new here. You'll come to new if there is any, and you'll fill in the information and save. Let me go back to applications. Nkateko, are you there? If you are there,
I'm here, Jan.
Yes, this section, the previous and current, I see we have made it compulsory. So if someone wants to select no current project, I think they will have some challenge here. Maybe we should change it to non-compulsory.
No problem, I will do that now.
Okay, and then expression of interest section. So here you will get some instructions before you even complete the section. You will get some instruction on how to complete the section, and you will have a maximum weight of 2,000 to complete each question asked. Okay. And then that will be it. Which one did I skip? Oh, I skipped the application support input. Sorry about that. So here you are going to create new, and then you're going to give us information about your partners or your co-investigators. So you will select the role and you will search for your partners using their email address or their surname. Nkateko, correct me if I'm wrong. The partners must also be registered on ORCID, am I right? In order for you to...
Yes, you are right, Jan. The partner needs to be registered on ORCID. And maybe just if you can search for someone, Jan, if you can just search for Nkateko to show the colleagues how you eventually search for the name. If you can type in, because if they try add like that, the information won't be captured. So you need to type in the person's details, search first, and if the information is not returned, you can click user not found to capture the information. Thank you so much, Jan.
Thank you, Nkateko. Yes, so if I want to add Nkateko, so I'll have to select from one of the Nkatekos that I see here. If she's not here, then I'll have to click on user found to add the details manually, Nkateko's details manually. Okay, I'm going to go out, back to application. I think that's it. So basically it should take you about 10 to 15 minutes to complete this one, this application for expression of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. I think that was useful. It did start when you went into the expression of interest. I think there was some indication in regards to what kind of information is going to be asked, but I think it's still important to provide Zolani an opportunity. Zolani, I think it was actually part of your presentation where you spoke about the difference between the expression of interest phase and the full proposal phase. So maybe some of the questions in the chat is showing us that people are a little bit unclear about what level of detail is required. So maybe if we just think about what is the main differences between what is required in the full proposal and the expression of interest phase. So what is not required in the expression of interest phase? Thanks, Zolani.
Thank you, Angelique. Thank you, Jan, also for showing us the last part of the application. The actual general guideline in completing this application and to ensure that you've got all the information required is to look at the application template. The application template provides some sort of guidelines in terms of each section, how much information or what kind of information is required. So as long as you complete all the information required in that application template that Jan just showed, in those sections, that is sufficient information required for the expression of interest and nothing more. However, the question that was dealing with the partnership in terms of the extent, also there is actually, I think, information required on partnerships in the online application template. I hope that helps, Angelique, in terms of guiding, because the template is a guiding. Whatever is required in the template should be completed, as Jan has showed, all those sections in the template.
Thanks, Zolani. I mean, I know that in terms of, for example, the ecological mitigation plan, that wouldn't be required at expression of interest phase. But I do think, obviously, in terms of the budget, we would need to have some sense of what the aim, what kinds of overarching scope of the budget is required. But there is a little bit more lenience between the expression of interest phase and the full proposal phase, of course, in terms of showing the extent of meaningful collaboration and how that will be achieved in the project. So the expression of interest is really to get a broad concept of and scope of what the project is proposing, whereas it's for us to be able to judge the social relevance, the intended impact, and then obviously the alignment with the conceptual focus and the thematic focus, as we've explained in the beginning sections. Thank you for that. I know that we have received now more hands. So let me just see if I can get to those. So I see there's five hands. So I have Sameni. Tabo, can you unmute Sameni? I've tried. Tabo?
Hello, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Sameni.
Yes, thank you so much for the informative presentation. I have a question in terms of submitting the application, the expression of interest regarding the basic informations, because some of the institutions are not included in the list, and I've been communicating to the support email address, but then I've not received any responses. So when you go to submit, especially the basic information tab, most of the institutions from Tanzania are not in the list. Maybe you can update so that we are able to proceed with the application process. Thank you.
Thank you, Sameni, for highlighting. Seems like a technical issue for the Tanzanian applicants. Kateko, I see that you've unmuted. Do you want to deal with that question directly?
Yes, thank you, Angelique. If we can maybe provide my email address and Jan's email address, I think support desk might have a lot of queries, hence they haven't dealt with this. So if all the requests for new institutions could be directed to myself and Jan, and then we would make sure that they are added on the system as soon as possible.
Thank you, Nkateko, for that clarification. I do think that at the bottom of the research call, your contact details are provided, but yes, I think we can easily just include it in the chat as well for people to take notes. So thank you for that question. I'd like to just take Rajesh and Muyaji and Monica's questions next, and then I do think we want to spend a little bit of time on some of the questions that are already in the chat. So Monica, I see that you've been unmuted. Do you want to ask us your question? Monica? Okay, we're not hearing anything from Monica. Tabo, can I ask that you unmute Rajesh?
Yes, they are unmute.
Oh, okay. It doesn't seem to be on my side.
Sorry, I was answered. I asked a question and then somebody responded to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rajesh. Monica? Okay, Tabo, can we just unmute? I'm so bad at this. Is it Muyaji? Alexander?
Yes, Miyagi. Thank you so much for the presentation. I actually wanted to ask and be clear on this. In a multi-country application, for instance, if we are applying in 3 countries, I mean a project involving 3 countries, are we allowed to recruit participants from one country and the other countries can actually do other activities like data interpretation and analysis? And then I wanted to know, like for the PI, to be clear on this one, for the multi-PI project, then who needs to do the application online? Because I saw like one of the respondents here said, in the system, you can register other partner principal investigators, but who does this? Who does the application online? or can every PI do the registration or one? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'll take one more from Amity.
Hi, thank you so much. I think this is a question I've seen come up a few times, but I didn't get a conclusive answer. Is this on PIs and country teams who are not based in South Africa and may not be NRF accredited or registered? What is the process for or eligibility for them to apply? I've seen this come up a few times, but no conclusion yet. So some insight here would be helpful.
Amity, let me just double check. So you're asking for the eligibility for South African PIs?
Yes, if they are not accredited or in an NRF registered institute. So if we are in a private institute from India, are we still eligible or do we have to team up with an NRF institute?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Amity. Solani, so I think we will leave now the questions that are coming through the hands, and then we'll see if there will be more time to get through some of the other questions. Zolani, can I ask you to respond on the question of who must apply in terms of the PI if it's a multi-country research project?
On that one, colleagues, a person who is working with one of the 12 countries with an institution in one of the targeted 12 countries that were introduced earlier can apply. You can be from any other country, but obviously there is that requirement that the institution should be an NRF recognized institution. I think the second question is linked to what is an NRF recognized institution. Please send, of course, some of the institutions are not in the list. If your institution is not in the list, please send it to Nkateko as indicated or Jan, and we will actually capture it. Or if it's an institution like you indicate that there's a private institution or institute from India, when we vet, we will inform you that this is a private institution and it's not recognized by the NRF. But the lead applicant should be in any country, but as long as they work with one of the targeted 12 countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Solani. I think that actually addressed the last two questions that we had. Zodwa, you are unmuted.
Yes, Angelique. No, I just wanted to just respond to the other question on who the principal investigator will be. I think that will be a decision that must be made by the consortium, and one person must be the lead investigator. We can't have many people working on the system, so it needs to be one applicant, and then when you get to that section of adding other investigators, co-investigators, or non-academic investigators, that is where you will include your consortium partners. Thanks.
Thank you, Zodwa. I'd like to just ask my co-hosts and panelists if they want to raise some of the questions that we might not have yet dealt with in the chat. It's been a bit difficult for me to keep track of those ones. It's easier to keep track of the question and answer ones. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that is very critical in the chat? Candace, Charlene, Dorothy?
I have one, Angelique. I have actually two. In a multi-country application, do we need to have participant recruitment and field work done in, for instance, all the 3 countries, or these could be done in one country, and the other applicant countries can focus on data analysis, interpretation, design, or research activities that do not involve field work and participant involvement? That is a question that was raised on the chat that we haven't discussed. So in other words, in a multi-country research project, can the research focus on one country, the field work itself, and the other components by the other research teams from other countries? Zolani?
I mean, just from my side, I would say I don't see I wouldn't see that that would not be eligible. I don't think that we are precluded from having certain parts being dealt with by different country teams. The main issue is just that it must be one of the focus countries of the research core. So, Danny, you can add.
Great, Angelique. I think that's on spot. And I think as long as the other collaborators have got a role, however menial or extensive the role is, it depends on the consortium. But of course, the targeted country, the research need to be done in one of the 12 targeted countries.
So, colleagues, here, let me make a comment. You mustn't try to game the system, because there will be real people reading your proposal to make sure that it is scientifically rigorous and of use to the world. And so when we come to this issue of, you've got a friend in another country who don't do that. Make sure that your proposal is based on a scientific intent. And so even if some people are going to do conceptual work, then that's really important. But don't just make sure that you're wanting to include your friends who did a PhD with you in a study. It's got to be scientifically rigorous, and it'll be really important. I mean, it'll be easy for us to read it. I will be reading every one of these expressions of interest, and so we'll have a whole panel of people reading it, and we all want to use this money and this opportunity to advance the research agenda. So I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit, but I think that's really important. This mustn't be a tick box exercise where we're trying to, you've got a proposal and now you're just going to bend it into shape. Rather just think afresh about how we can really make a good opportunity going on from here. And some of the questions that people are asking, is there a maximum number of countries? The answer is no, not really, but what is possible with the limited funds, with the limited time? And so all of those things are going to be things that you, myself and others are going to read for. We want to be as excited about these proposals as you have been at the beginning of thinking, wow, this is a really groundbreaking way forward. So yeah, just those kinds of things. And I think that covers a lot of the questions where people are saying, oh, there are a couple of people saying, I haven't got a PhD yet, but I'm getting it in April. Apply. By the time the actual award will happen, it'll be a few months down the line. And as long as you meet the criteria, because remember, one of the things that will happen is whatever we decide will be audited so that there's fairness. And we want to make sure that we are not giving people research grants if they don't actually qualify. And so we're going to be rigorous, but we're also not going to be nitpicky. So an example, somebody said, what about countries outside of the 12 countries? We have allowed ourselves a little bit of discretion to think you've got 2 countries who are in, and you've got this other piece that we hadn't even thought of. Well, we want to consider that. We want to consider, but we also need to make sure that we justify the criteria in what we do.
Thank you so much for that, Charlene, because I think the focus of today's session was really to talk about the technicalities, but again, we are going to be evaluating these expression of interest very, very clearly in terms of the social impact that we see it have, the conceptual relevance in relation to what we are trying to do in this innovative program of work, and we want to ensure that it also facilitates and fosters meaningful collaboration with young people, because we know often work with young people is tokenistic, and we don't want those kind of objectives or principles driving the work. So we really want people to engage with how can relational well-being as an approach to research, as a framework for conducting research, really offer value? How can we test it to see and show whether it offers values within the particular context within which we're going to be exploring it? And obviously in relation to the particular thematic areas, but also, as Charlene has said, also conceptual work around it, because as a new and novel and emerging framework, it needs to be subjected to critical scrutiny for us to be able to say, yes, this is a useful way for us to look at and foster the well-being of young people in the global south, which we know are facing these immense and intractable challenges. So thank you, Charlene, for bringing us back to the main purpose of this program of work. Thanks. Dorothy?
Angelique, there is one more question from Malcolm. What are the expectations for collaboration with non-academic stakeholders, and how should these partnerships be demonstrated within the expression of interest or proposals? Is it in the form of MOUs, confirmation letters? What is acceptable? I think it's a two-part question, and I would like to ask Charlene to go first, actually, in terms of that. What are your expectations for that demonstration? And then perhaps Zolani can respond with regard to how the partnerships should be demonstrated within the expression of interest. Thank you.
I think it's quite hard at expression of interest stage to actually work out the fine workings of how you're going to work. And partly because it happens as you develop the full understanding of the proposal. I think what we want to know is that you've had some good discussions, that you've got a good idea of how you will work together, and what roles will be assigned to various partners. And also you've got a limited space, Zolani will talk about that, to talk about it in expression of interest. But I think you can communicate the seriousness of the collaboration. I mean, that's what I think we want to see, the seriousness and the thoughtfulness of the collaboration, as opposed to just the tick box exercise that we saw earlier. And so for me, it would be, it would be absolutely important that you have a couple of calls with partners before you actually submit your expression of interest. And you speak about even the modality. You know, are you going to meet together regularly to produce the full proposal? And how are you going to network? Is it going to be virtually? Are you close enough to each other to get together frequently? You know, so roles, I think roles and also modalities are going to be important.
Thanks, Dorothy. And I think Charlene covered the most critical part about the partnerships, because if you don't talk to your partner, you won't be able to submit your application. As Nkateko indicated, that your partner need to confirm, and obviously your partner would need to know what's the extent of his or her involvement in the application. So you'd need to have some discussion and clear roles. And obviously, certain partners will not be, or potential partners might not be available if you've got more work for them to do. So that will take a bit of time in terms of you submitting the expression of interest. But look at it as a pre-plan for the full proposal, a partnership submission, because you need to be extensive there and you need to produce evidence. But also, in this case, the panel will be able to pick up if you've chosen someone who's not even understanding of the area or the role that you're allocating. So please be serious about the partnership, as much as we don't want you to spend endless time to produce a lot of information. But as if you are applying for any grant, just talk to your partners and have clear roles in the application. Thank you.
Zolani, Malcolm is asking whether we need, whether they need MOUs or letters of support or confirmation letters at the EOI stage. And I would suggest not yet, but I also didn't see any space for uploading attachments in the expression of interest. Am I right?
Yes, not at this stage. But I think as long as the system, because the system will check the institution of the person, the role that the person has, that information is sufficient for now. Then further information in the full proposal, then it should be supported with what was submitted earlier.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Zolani. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Dorothy, Cindy Lee, Krish. Is there anything else? I mean, we also, obviously, we want to be able to exhaust as many of the questions that we could, but obviously, you know, we might not be able to touch on everything, and we hope that through sharing the recording, through also constructing a frequently asked question list from this session, that we will be able to address some of the more technical queries, which, you know, are smaller questions. But I think the main guide is also around Charlene's input around being intentional about the proposals and concepts that we are going to submit, rather than, of course, we need to check eligibility, we need to check some of these finer details, but many of this can be addressed in our frequently asked questions as well, and also through going onto the applications portal and looking through the template that is on the portal. So with that, I want to just invite also all of my panelists to bring up any burning issues that I might have missed in the chat, but I think we've done well to be able to move through the most critical aspects and also share also just our excitement about this work, and that we are very excited to be on this journey with you all.
Angelique, somebody has just asked again whether the deadline has been extended to the 31st of March, and we want to confirm that that is so. The other is, I want to say this, that there are quite a lot of South Africans on the call, and there have been, but there are also lots of applicants from all over the world and from those 12 countries in particular. And colleagues, we want to make sure that we get enough applicants from outside of South Africa. Yes, the NRF and the HSRC are South Africa based, but we want to give you even more help to log your institutions with language, with any of those issues, because we don't want to have too few applicants from other countries in the Global South. So please reach out to us. We want to help you make your application and make it as good as possible. So please take that seriously from us.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Charlene. Yes, I mean, a key part of this program is also the capacity building aspect, and we want to be able to really support and include those countries that are maybe not as proficient in the English, and also maybe the application systems, because the South African applicants will obviously be more advantaged in that respect. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending this session. I want to respect everybody's time in not going too much over time. So I want to just reiterate that after this call, we will be lodging this recording on our space as well as the YouGood webpage. We will also be updating our space with supporting resources and also with the frequently asked questions as we've gathered from this session. So I really just want to thank everybody for their contribution and for everybody's excitement. We are also very excited. And so, yes, we're very excited to go on this journey with you. Please note down the emails of Nkateko and Jan for some of those more technical queries, but also, as you would have seen, Dr. Josie is also available to assist on some of the more technical aspects of the research call. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Dorothy, and thank you, Zodwa. Thank you, Jan, and thank you, Nkateko.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Angelique. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Are you
Thanks,
going to
everyone.
go?
Bye.